Welcome to Bashy's Corner. We invite guests from all sections of Danish society. We discuss with them politics, culture, sports, religion, Danish integration policies, any issue which we think is very important for the well-being of the society. We also take those issues which mainstream media often does not want or maybe don't care. And today, we have a very special guest today, Vibeke Døssing. She is a priest in St. Thomas Church in Frederiksberg, where I live myself. So thank you very much for accepting our invitation to come. We are not going to discuss politics with you. We are going to discuss with you spirituality and different issues for the society. You are an ordained priest for Danish People Church, or Folkekirke. Why it is called Danish Folkekirke, or Danish People Church?
Yes, it's a very interesting word actually, because it's very typical, I think, for the Danish society that we have a Folkekirke, a people's church. If you look at other basic institutions in Denmark, we have the people's school, folkeskole, we have the people's library, the folkebiblioteker. So it's something about it is the people's institutions. It's not an institution of the state or of a church council deciding from the top. It is the people who decide in the church, in the school. It is so that every parish, where there's a church and a parish, there's elected some local people. And those local people decide what way shall our church go. So it is not the Bishop of Copenhagen who decides in what way St. Thomas Church on Frederiksberg shall go. It is the local people elected by the people living in that parish.
And then there is a board who decides how the church will be run?
I'm sorry?
There's a board of people who sits
exactly. They are elected and they decide what shall we use money at, and when you are going to have a new priest, it is not so that the Bishop of Copenhagen say, well, that priest shall go to that church.
But he has to approve it. No?
He has to approve it, but they elect the priest, so they decide over the church. It is the people's church. It's very beautiful.
I think it's wonderful. It's also, I can see that many Danish political parties also call themselves People's Danish Party, People's Conservative Party, People's Socialist Party.
Exactly.
So it's like a lot of giving a signal.
Yeah, it's a democratic way of showing that this is a democratic institution.
So tell me, what is the role of a priest then in that particular church? What is your role in St. Thomas Church?
Well, it is actually very simple. I have to preach the gospel. I have to baptize the children and the grown-ups. I have to bury the dead. I have to marry the ones in love, and so on. It's very practical. That is my job, and to give the learning to the young people and to talk to people when they come and knock at the door and say, I have got a problem. Will you please help me? Will you listen to me? My job is to listen.
So it's just like a psychologist?
No, not a psychologist, more like than a friend.
A friend.
Another human being listening. The big difference between perhaps a psychologist and a priest is that I just listen. I'm just a friend listening. I'm not writing something down. I'm not giving a diagnosis. I'm not trying to find out deeper. I just listen to you.
But listening is also very important for
very important. We listen not that much.
Vibeke, I understand that 85% of the Danes are members of Danish church.
Yes.
Right? They pay taxes and they are members. Yet, if you ask Danish people, they say, oh, I'm not Christian, you know. We are secular. So why this contradiction?
Yeah, I think you have to know that one thing is what people say, and another thing is what they actually do and what they actually believe. And I think that a lot of people don't feel that they are able to say, yes, I believe in God. Because a lot of people think that when they say they believe in God, they believe in an old man sitting on a cloud in the sky, and they can't say yes to that picture of God. So they better say no, I don't believe, but at the same time I know that almost everybody deep in their heart, on the bottom of their hearts, they know that the world is bigger than I know. I know there is something more. That is the most common sense I hear when I talk to people, when they come to the church to have their children baptized, for example. And they start saying, well, we don't go that often to church, and that means they almost never go to church. But even though, as you say, they come to the church, how come? Because that on the bottom of your heart, you know that there's something we can't explain, but on which we depend.
So do you think that they miss something?
I don't think they miss something, but I know that they know when all come to all, we are not alone. We are part of something bigger. And that bigger, we in our culture and our religion, our faith, call God.
But can't we call it higher forces or nature, whatever you can call, any name?
Yeah, but in our, you know, all the Christian stories, they live in us. The picture of God lives in us. And we live our lives, I think, on the stories from the Bible. So we understand our lives from those stories. They're so important.
I live right across a church in Fredericksburg.
Yes.
You know, Gotthard's Church.
Yes.
And I often pass by, and I see that it's always empty, you know. And only on Sundays or if somebody dies, then people come.
Yeah.
In a country which is Christian, which is 85% people who are member of, why this empty churches? Yeah,
I think you have to look at what kind of Christianity is it that we have in Denmark. And it is the Protestant Christianity. And it is something that we don't show, obviously, our belief, our faith. We don't eat something special, we don't dress in a special way, we don't have to pray 5 times or 2 times a day. We don't have to do anything because our relation to God is something from me to God. I don't need private. I don't need this surrounding. I don't need holy places to talk to God. That is what the Reformation in the 16th century was about, that we actually don't need a church to have a talk, a dialogue with God. I can have it at home in my apartment.
Actually, it's a very good, I personally believe in that too, you know, that
is
relationship with God is private, you know.
So that is why people don't go that much to church. Yes.
Is it that people don't like this institution of church, or maybe it's because they don't have time?
Both. I think, no, I think people like it, but I think sometimes, I can hear that actually, that they feel that the church is a little strange, a little old-fashioned, a little too serious perhaps. But it's very important to say at the same time that when then you come and you have to bury your mother, you are very, very happy that this institution is serious and that it is based on traditions. So when something seriously happens in your life, you get a child, you fall in love, somebody dies from you, people come to church. And they know it is there.
You talked about burial, you know. First time when I met you, it was actually at a funeral.
Yes.
A very dear friend of mine's father died, and you came there and gave such a beautiful spiritual, you know, sermon that I was very touched. And I said, I need to speak with that priest, you know. So, is there a need for spirituality in Danish society today?
I think that where there is a man or a woman, there's always a need of spirituality, or I don't think there's a need, perhaps you could say that there is spirituality, because being a human being is also being spiritual. I think that we all have dreams, we all have longings, and not only, you know, very concrete dreams about a new car or a bigger apartment, but also something more unknown. For example, being a part of something bigger. Is there life after death? What will happen when I die? What will happen when the one I love dies, and so on? All these questions is a part of being a human being, and therefore spirituality will always be there.
I remember in your sermon you talked about faith, hope, and love.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful combination.
Yeah.
Can we combine these three things in one entity somehow?
Yes, and that is the words I've taken them from Paul, from the Gospel.
Yes.
In the letter, one of Paul's letters, he says, when there's faith, hope, and love. These three, but greatest of them is love.
Yes, that is.
So that is what I think it is the three most beautiful words in our life. We have to have them.
So why so much emphasis on love? Is it come from Jesus, or is it just?
Love is, well, fundamental in life for everybody, wherever you grow up, whoever you are. The ties we have to other people, friends, father, mother, sisters, the one you love, your lover, everything. Everybody, it is the fundament of life. And love is not only love to the people you know, the people I just mentioned, but it is also the respect you show other people you just meet on the street, to meet them with love. Jesus says you have to love other people. Love your neighbor like you love yourself. And love doesn't mean to kiss. Love means to dignity, to show respect, so that people feel that life is beautiful. You know the difference between a face that smiles to you and a face that is closed.
But when you talk about love, because I notice in Danish society, they use this word love for everything. You know? I love my dog, I love my books, I love my cigarettes, you know. Isn't it like trivializing this word love?
Yeah, perhaps you could say that. You say, I love ice cream. It's not the same as using it in another way. But I think that love has something to do with being tender, being a little, you have to take a step backwards, and to, in the society we live in today, everything is about being first, being strongest, being richest.
Competition.
Competition. And then it doesn't matter how the others, how they manage, as long as I and my family, we manage. And love has something to do with looking at the others and say, well, perhaps you need to be first now. I'll take a step backwards because you, Bashy, you need to be the first now. That is love.
And does it come from, because I know that in Christianity, Jesus is a symbol of love, and also himself, his love for God. Do you think that we can use that kind of selfless love in this modern society? Yeah,
we need it. We can't live without it. I mean, it is so easy just to think. It's so easy just to do things that seems easy, but you have to consider if it is the most important thing I do. I mean, is it so important to be first? Is it so important? What is important in your life, actually? And if you ask people, I think that a lot of people have stress today because they don't dare to ask themselves, what is actually the most important thing in my life? And therefore you just are busy doing a lot of things, being a perfect parent, being a perfect partner, being a perfect at your job and so on. But
I want to come back to the position of church in Denmark,
yes.
the Folkekirke, People's Church. The church claims that it has been very instrumental in forming the Danish society.
Yeah.
Is it true?
Yes, I think so, because as we talked about the Reformation back in the Middle Age and the Renaissance, we separated the political world from the religious world. So there doesn't exist such a thing in a discussion as a religious argument. I can't say to you, it is true because God says. I have to use another argumentation, I have to argument in another way than God says.
Why? Because people don't believe in God?
Yeah, because you don't perhaps believe in the same God as I do, and more important, I don't know what God means. I can't say God means because I'm not God.
So you can interpret.
I have to interpret. Yes. I believe in Jesus. I'm a Christian, and therefore I have some point of views. But I cannot say that God says. I can say I think it's right to build a society on these values, and these values are Christians. But I cannot say God says.
But as I said before, we live in a very complicated world. Religions are thousands of years old, Judaism, Christianity, Islam. So the question is that can the church in this form as it is, which is 400 or 500 years old, can it play any role for this modern man?
I think it plays the role. I think it plays a role. I think that when it comes to your personal belief, your longing for a guideline in life, church is there. I'm a little afraid of religions. I'm a little afraid of religious institutions that want to play a role in the society.
Because separation?
Yes, because I think that it is dangerous when the religious institutions go out and say God means and the truth is. Let me tell you a story. When I was a young priest, the first year I was a priest, I lived in Nørrebro in a little apartment, and upstairs I lived a Jew, downstairs I lived a Muslim, two young Muslims. Next to me, the young woman that I shared a toilet with, she was Swedish, and she believed in, or she was very fascinated at the Eastern Mysteria religions, Buddha and so on. And then upstairs again, there lived a nurse working at a hospital, and she didn't believe in any God. She just believed in the empathy, and she showed her patients at the hospital, but she didn't believe in God. We were living in the same building. Who of us had the truth? Was it the Jew, the Muslims? Was it Buddha, the good Buddha girl? Was it the nurse, atheistic, or was it me as a priest? I was writing a preaching about Jesus who says, I am the truth. And I sat there in this sandwich in the middle as a,
So what did you learn then?
I learned that truth is not something you can have, but it's something that you live together.
And you create.
We lived together in this building, and the truth was that we lived together, and that we agreed in living together, that we accepted each other and the differences between us.
That's what actually I wanted to ask you. My next question was about what you're just telling me, so you have read my mind. Because Denmark has been one religion country for 50 years now, and or many hundreds of years. But now for the last 50 years, many people with Muslim background have come to Denmark.
Yes.
And as you know, they practice the religion very visibly. They're very proud to be there. They pray and they fast. And also they walk in street with some of them with headscarf. And don't you think it's like a challenge to Christianity?
I think that they shall practice their religion and their faith as they want to. of course. And we shall do it in a very private, very silent way that we normally do. I don't think, I'm not afraid of the Muslims, not at all.
Okay.
I'm not afraid of anything because we do it in our ways, each one of us. And I think that this private, quiet, tender relation that we have to guard in the Protestant church is very beautiful, and for me it is very natural.
When I was listening to your sermon at the funeral, you know, I was thinking of death. I saw a casket lying there. I'm very afraid of dying, you know. I don't know why, it's just, you know. Why is it so? Why people are afraid to die?
I'm afraid to die too.
You too? Okay.
Yes, I think everybody is afraid to die. If you love life, if you love waking up in the morning, longing for your morning coffee, if you like the sun, if you like your friends, if you like breathing, of course you're afraid of dying, because when it ends, this life that you love. So it's not strange that we are afraid of dying. But then, as a Christian, we have the belief that when we die, there's someone who takes us. There's a hand.
So there's a hope afterward.
There's a hope. It doesn't end. I can't explain what happened.
No.
That would be a lie, because I've never been there. But there's a hope that quietly we fall into the hand of God.
How important is the interfaith cooperation and dialogue in Denmark today?
It's very important. It's very important that we listen to each other, that we get to learn each other, that we know what we stand for, and that we know that the others are not enemies, and they are not that different from us. When I studied theology, I worked at the language school for Danish refugee aid.
Okay.
And I had some classes with refugees from all over the world, and they were so much alike. They just dreamed about a peaceful life, a work, that their children could go to school, that their children would be clever than the parents, as all parents dream of, and that you're not going to be shot when you put up your laundry outside. They just wanted a peaceful living, where you could pray to the God you believe in, where you could send the children to school, go to the hospital if you're sick, and so on. And it is so important that we know that, first of all, we are human beings, and next we are Muslims, Christians.
The Bishop of Copenhagen, Peter Skov Jacobsen,
Yeah.
he recently said in an interview, if Jesus saw today's society, he would admonish us for how we treat minorities, and for our lack of community and compassion and togetherness. He would be deeply disturbed by how we forget each other, don't grieve together, and how we run from our problems.
Yeah,
Do
he's
you
a
agree with that?
very clever man, Peter,
Yes.
our bishop, yes.
Yes.
I agree totally in it, and I would say that I think that every man or every woman will be sad, or is sad, when we look at the world today. For example, here in our part of the world, we are so rich. We couldn't almost be richer. And even though we are that rich, we are so afraid of losing things, afraid of giving away. It is very sad, and it's not actually to understand how come that we are so afraid to help people who are in need.
My last question to you, if you look 50 years ahead,
Yes.
would you see more religion or less religion?
It's very
Hopefully.
difficult to say. Hopefully, I will hope it will be almost the same.
Okay.
Because I couldn't imagine a world without religion or less religion, but at the same time I'm afraid of a world where religion plays a too big role, because I'm a little scared of religion.
Being a priest?
Yeah, if it's not something personal,
Positive,
because
yeah.
you often use religion to say, God means and you don't mean that, and therefore you shall die.
Well, I hope that my viewers have learned a lot from your beautiful message of faith, hope, and love. And that is what we all need. Thank you very much, Vibeke.
Thank you,
I'm very happy
Thank
that you came
Thank
here.
you for being here.
Thank you very much.